The gunshots echoed through the courtyard. Snowflakes turned red as they touched the ground. But Heinrich Falk's last words would echo through eternity. This is how heroes die, not with fanfare, not with glory, but in silence, in shadows, forgotten by history. Until now, previously on Buried Stories, Lieutenant Heinrich Falk lived a double life. By day, a German officer, by night, a guardian angel for the condemned. He planned the impossible, smuggling 3 prisoners out in a medical transport. David, the old man who had lost everything, Leah, the young woman who still dared to hope, and a child whose parents had already perished. But Commander Mertens was closing in. The trap was tightening, and a warning note had shattered Heinrich's sense of safety. You are no longer safe. A young soldier had discovered his secret, but chose silence over betrayal. Now, the night of escape has arrived. Everything ends tonight. The sun set over the camp like a dying ember. Heinrich watched from his window. His heart was steady. His mind was clear. Tonight, 3 people would either find freedom, or they would all find death. There was no middle ground. He checked his watch. 2 hours until the medical transport departed. 2 hours to change the course of 4 lives forever. He dressed carefully. Every button, every crease. If this was his last night on Earth, he would face it with dignity. In his pocket, he carried 3 forged documents, 3 names, 3 chances at life. He whispered to himself, Heinrich, forgive me for what I've done. Forgive me for what I'm about to do. And if there is a God, let them live. He opened the door and stepped into the cold night air. The final act had begun. Heinrich moved through the shadows like a ghost. He reached the barracks without incident. The door creaked as he slipped inside. Familiar faces turned toward him in the darkness. David was waiting. Beside him, Leah clutched the hand of a small boy, no more than 8 years old. The child's eyes were hollow. He had seen too much for his young age. Heinrich, it's time. Are you ready? David nodded slowly. His old bones ached, but his spirit was unbroken. David, we've been ready since the day we arrived here, ready to live or ready to die. Leah pulled the boy closer. Leah, his name is Samuel, his parents. They didn't survive the selection. He has no one. Heinrich knelt down to meet the boy's eyes. Heinrich, Samuel, tonight you're going to be very brave. Can you do that for me? The boy stared at him. A German uniform, the face of the enemy. But something in Heinrich's eyes. Samuel nodded. Heinrich, good. Stay close. Stay quiet. And no matter what happens, don't look back. They moved like shadows through shadows. Heinrich led the way, checking corners, listening for patrols. Behind him, David shuffled as quietly as his aged body allowed. Leah carried Samuel when his small legs grew tired. The medical transport was parked near the camp's rear gate. A large truck covered with canvas. Inside, crates of supplies heading to a field hospital, and hidden among those crates, space for 3. They reached the truck without being seen. Heinrich's hands trembled as he lifted the canvas. Heinrich, inside, quickly. There's space behind the medical crates. Don't move. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear. David climbed in first, his joints protesting. Leah handed Samuel up, then pulled herself inside. For a moment, Heinrich and Leah's eyes met. Leah, why? Why risk everything for strangers? Heinrich paused, the question he had asked himself 1,000 times. Heinrich, because if I don't, then what am I? Just another monster in a uniform. Tears streamed down Leah's face. Leah, I don't even know your name. Heinrich, my name is Heinrich. Leah, I will never forget you, Heinrich. Never. He lowered the canvas. His heart was pounding. They were so close, so impossibly close to freedom. And then, the sirens began to scream. The sound tore through the night like a knife. Searchlights swung wildly across the camp. Shouts erupted from every direction. Dogs began to bark. Heinrich's blood turned to ice. Heinrich. No, 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 no. He heard footsteps, running, coming closer. Inside the truck, he heard Samuel whimper. Leah whispered desperately, "Leah, shh, shh, it's okay, stay quiet." Heinrich drew his sidearm. His mind raced through options. Fight, run, surrender. None of them led anywhere good. The footsteps grew louder. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, and then from the shadows behind him, a voice. Mertens. Going somewhere, Falk? Heinrich turned slowly. Commander Mertens stood there, flanked by a dozen armed soldiers. His face wore a triumphant smile, the smile of a predator who had finally caught his prey. Mertens. I knew there was a rat. I just needed to wait for it to show itself. Heinrich didn't run. There was nowhere to go. He stood tall, facing Mertens. The gun in his hand seemed suddenly useless. Mertens. Did you really think you could fool me, Falk? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Mertens walked closer, savoring the moment. Mertens. The falsified records, the missing supplies, the prisoners who should have died but somehow survived. It all pointed to someone on the inside. He stopped inches from Heinrich's face. Mertens. I just never imagined it would be one of my own officers. Tell me, how does it feel to be a traitor to your own people? Heinrich met his gaze without flinching. Heinrich. I am not the traitor here. Mertens. No? Then what do you call this? Helping Jews escape? Stealing supplies meant for German soldiers? Heinrich. I call it being human, something you've forgotten how to be. Mertens' smile vanished. His hand shot out, striking Heinrich across the face. Mertens. Search the truck. Soldiers tore back the canvas. Flashlight beams illuminated the terrified faces inside. David shielding Samuel with his frail body. Leah, tears streaming down her face. Soldier. 3 prisoners, Herr Oberst, hiding among the supplies. Mertens laughed. A cold, hollow sound. Mertens. Bring them out. Let's see what our heroic officer was willing to die for. Rough hands dragged them from the truck. David fell to the ground, too weak to stand. A soldier kicked him. Heinrich. Leave him alone. Heinrich lunged forward, but 2 soldiers grabbed him, forcing him to his knees. Samuel was crying now. Leah held him tight, whispering words of comfort that she herself didn't believe. Mertens walked slowly around the group, examining them like insects. Mertens. An old man, a girl, and a child. This is what you sacrificed everything for, Falk. This worthless trash? Heinrich looked up, blood dripping from his lip. Heinrich. They are not worthless. They are not trash. They are human beings. Mertens. They are enemies of the Reich. Heinrich. They are not enemies. They are not soldiers. They are not threats. Heinrich's voice grew stronger. Heinrich. They are fathers and daughters, mothers and sons, teachers and students, dreamers and believers. He met Mertens' cold eyes. Heinrich. They are not your enemy. Your enemy is your own fear. Silence fell over the scene. Even the soldiers seemed frozen. Then Mertens spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Mertens. Take them to the courtyard, all of them. They marched through the camp, Heinrich, David, Leah, Samuel, surrounded by soldiers, watched by prisoners who pressed their faces against barracks windows. Word spread like wildfire. The shadow, they caught him. He was an officer, one of them. He tried to save us. Eyes followed them. Hundreds of eyes, witnesses to a tragedy unfolding. An old woman reached through the barbed wire, her fingers stretching toward them. Old woman. God bless you. God bless you. A guard struck her hand away, but she kept reaching, kept blessing. Heinrich walked with his head high. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. Beside him, David stumbled. Heinrich caught his arm, holding him up. David, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we couldn't make it. Heinrich, don't be sorry. We tried. That's more than most can say. Leah walked behind them, carrying Samuel. The boy had stopped crying. His eyes were empty now, resigned. The courtyard appeared ahead. Gray walls, gray sky, gray destiny. The courtyard was empty except for 4 wooden posts, execution posts, soldiers lined up along one wall, a firing squad. Their rifles gleamed in the early morning light. Mertens stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back, waiting. They were pushed against the posts, hands bound, no blindfolds. Mertens wanted them to see death coming. The air was thick with fog. Snowflakes drifted down like ashes from a burning world. Heinrich stood straight. David prayed quietly in Hebrew. Leah held Samuel's hand across the small gap between their posts. Leah, don't be afraid, Samuel. Close your eyes. Think of something beautiful. A field of flowers. Your mother's smile. The sun on your face. Samuel closed his eyes. Mertens approached Heinrich one last time. Mertens, any last words, traitor? Any final plea for mercy? Heinrich looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time he saw not a monster, but a broken man. A man so consumed by hate that he had forgotten how to feel anything else. Heinrich, I don't want your mercy. I want you to remember this moment. Remember that even here, in the darkest place on earth, there was still light, and you couldn't extinguish it. Mertens stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. Mertens, ready the squad. Leah was crying. Leah, it wasn't worth it. Dying for us. You should have run, should have saved yourself. Heinrich turned his head toward her. His voice was calm, peaceful even. Heinrich, I did save myself, Leah. My soul, my conscience. That's worth more than 1,000 years of living as a coward. Leah, but you'll die, Heinrich. We all die. What matters is how we live. And in the end, the greatest escape isn't running away. It's speaking the truth. David's voice rose, reciting an ancient prayer, words of faith spoken in the shadow of death. The old man turned to the nearest soldier, a young man barely out of boyhood. David, remember us. That's all I ask. Remember that we were human, that we loved, that we hoped, that we believed. The soldier's face was pale. His hands shook on his rifle. David, this man, Heinrich, he was not a monster. He was the best of you. Remember him. Tell someone, anyone, so the world will know that even in hell there was an angel. Mertens' voice cut through the air. Mertens, the world will never know. History is written by the victors, and we will win. He raised his hand. Mertens, aim. Rifles rose. A dozen barrels pointed at 4 hearts. Samuel kept his eyes closed. Flowers, his mother's smile, the sun. Leah gripped his hand tighter. Heinrich looked up at the falling snow. So beautiful, so pure, so indifferent to the horrors below. Mertens. Fire. The gunshots shattered the morning. Then, silence. The snow kept falling, gentle, endless, covering everything in white, but beneath the white, red, spreading slowly, staining the purity. The soldiers lowered their rifles. Some looked away. One wiped his eyes. Mertens stood motionless, watching the bodies slump against the posts. Mertens, remove them. Burn the remains. There will be no graves, no markers, no record. He turned to leave, then paused. Mertens, this never happened. Understood? This never happened. The soldiers nodded. Within hours, all evidence was destroyed. The transport logs were corrected. The names were erased. Lieutenant Heinrich Falk officially died of typhus. David, Leah, and Samuel never existed at all. But some things cannot be erased. In the barracks that night, a prisoner whispered to another, and that prisoner whispered to the next, and the next. There was a man, an officer, who gave his life for us. He was the shadow, the one who helped us. His name was Heinrich. The story spread from camp to camp, survivor to survivor, generation to generation, not in history books, not in official records, but in the memories of those who were there. Years later, when the camps were liberated, an old woman emerged from the gates. She had been young once, a girl named Leah's friend. She had heard the gunshots that morning, and she remembered. She told her children, who told their children, who told theirs. The story changed with each telling. Details were lost, others were added, but the core remained. A German officer who chose humanity over hatred, a man who walked into darkness and became light, a hero who history forgot, but survivors remembered. The camp archives were seized after the war. Investigators searched for evidence of atrocities, names of the guilty, records of the dead. They found a file marked Heinrich Falk, cause of death, typhus. No further details, no mention of midnight rescues, no record of stolen medicine, no evidence of the shadow who gave hope to the hopeless. Mertens had been thorough, but in a small village in Poland, an elderly woman kept a single photograph, a picture salvaged from the ruins. A young German officer with kind eyes. She didn't know his name, but she knew his story. The story her mother had whispered to her before she died. This man saved us. Never forget him. She never did. History remembers the famous, the generals, the politicians, the conquerors. But history forgets the quiet ones, the ones who fought their battles in shadow, the ones who sacrificed everything without asking for recognition. Heinrich Falk never received a medal. His name appears in no textbook. No monument bears his face, but in the hearts of those he touched, he lives forever. A single flame in infinite darkness, a whisper of hope in a world of screams, a reminder that even in humanity's darkest hour, there are still those who choose light. Sometimes, history's most silent heroes disappear in the darkest shadows, but the small light they ignite is enough to awaken the conscience of a generation. 70 years later, an old woman stands before a memorial wall, thousands of names carved in stone, victims of hatred, casualties of madness. She places her hand on the cold surface. Her grandmother was named Leah's friend. Her grandmother's friend was named Leah. And Leah had told her story before she died. The old woman whispers, "Old woman, Heinrich, I don't know if you can hear me, but I wanted you to know, we remember. After all these years, we still remember." She places a small stone at the base of the wall, a Jewish tradition, a sign that someone visited, that someone cared. Thank you for being human when the world forgot how. She turns and walks away. The snow begins to fall, and somewhere in the space between memory and eternity, a quiet voice answers, "That was enough." In Science of a Generation. Thank you for watching Buried Stories. Heinrich Falk was not a real person, but his story represents the thousands of unnamed heroes who risked everything during humanity's darkest chapter. We may never know their names, we may never find their graves, but their courage, their sacrifice, their light, it matters. It all matters. If this story moved you, share it. Not for us, but for them. For the silent heroes who deserve to be remembered. Subscribe for more stories that history forgot, because some stories are too important to stay buried. This was The Officer in the Shadows. Rest in peace, Heinrich. The end.